Most homeowners think that health starts with food or fitness, but honestly, the house you live in has a much bigger role in your well-being than most people even hear about. I've walked into so many homes that look perfectly clean and updated, but the air quality is struggling. Humidity is too high, or simple maintenance tasks are causing bigger issues. As a certified building biology practitioner, a home inspector, and a healthy home expert, I can tell you this: your home is either supporting your health or slowly stressing it out. Today, we're going through the maintenance checklist that actually impacts your health, and not just your house. We're talking humidity, VOCs, mold prevention, dust load, ventilation, and a few unexpected tasks that genuinely take your indoor air from fine to healthy. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Amanda. I'm a building biology practitioner, a certified home inspector, a healthy home expert, and the owner and creator of Healthy House on the Block, where I empower you with information, knowledge, and step-by-step tasks to do in your own home that will help create a healthier environment, one that actually supports your health and wellness rather than burdening it down over time. And today we are talking about the unglamorous home maintenance. And there are some very specific things that you can do in your house to actually help create a healthier environment. They're things that often get missed and we kind of push them to the back burner, but they're very important for our indoor air quality and ultimately the health of our bodies. Most homeowners think maintenance is about preventing water damage and preserving resale value, or honestly just avoiding costly repairs. And while that's all true, there's actually a bigger story that's happening at the microscopic or even chemical level inside your home, because the systems we often overlook are the ones that directly impact the air we breathe and ultimately how our bodies feel day to day. So indoor humidity is one of the most overlooked factors when it comes to air quality, but it's also one of the most powerful. Moisture affects everything: building materials, microbial growth, toxin release, and even the way chemicals move throughout your home. Many common building materials and furnishings slowly release volatile organic compounds. We often call them VOCs, and they release them into the air over time. This is things like paint, varnishes, floor finishes, pressed wood furniture or cabinetry, even your carpets. They all do this. And these emissions are often beginning when the materials are new, but environmental conditions, especially temperature and especially humidity, have a strong influence on the rate at which they off-gas. There was actually research published by the National Center for Biotechnology and Information, and they have documented this relationship extensively. So what's particularly striking is how much humidity can amplify this process. Scientific studies show that elevated relative humidity can significantly increase the rate at which these VOCs off-gas from just our everyday common materials. So for example, under conditions of increased humidity, some water-based floor varnishes and wall paints showed measured increases in total VOC emissions, according to this research that was published. There was also a real-world indoor air study published, and increasing the relative humidity from about 21% to 58%, the range was 58% to 75%. It actually caused measured concentrations of certain VOCs to double or triple. So that's a lot of VOCs in our space. Now, the problem doesn't stop with manufactured materials. There was another study that found materials like drywall and carpet dust, when exposed to high moisture over time, not only foster microbial growth like mold and bacteria, but they also release what are called microbial VOCs, or MVOCs. So these are gases produced by mold and bacteria themselves, and they add further to the chemical load in your indoor air. So this research actually helps explain why moisture damaged areas often have that distinct musty smell, and why the health effects extend way beyond what we typically think of as mold exposure. Are you a little unsure about where you even should be starting with the healthy house? Like, What are the first steps? After 10 plus years of hands-on experience, I know what those first steps are, and I know the steps to take that won't have you spending lots of money in the beginning, but will get you excited for all of the changes and all the potential that your house has. The truth is, creating a healthy house doesn't have to be really expensive. It doesn't have to be really complicated. You just have to know the exact steps to take. Anybody can check things off a list, and that's exactly what I'm here to help you do. My free ebook is an amazing resource to help you get started on getting toxins out of your house and creating healthier habits, and also planning for the future for some of those bigger changes. So in practicality, what this means is that you need to maintain your humidity levels year round. And we want to keep indoor humidity levels ideally around 30%, no higher than 50%. And this is commonly recommended as like the healthy zone from building science research. It's low enough to discourage mold and microbial growth, but it's not so dry as to create static or skin irritation or overly dry air that can actually cause illness in the long run. So I want you to use a reliable hygrometer and check your humidity periodically. You can place these monitors in multiple locations. I recommend basements as number one priority, but then kitchens, bathrooms, laundry areas, even bedrooms. They can all have different humidity levels, and problem areas often develop in places that we check the least often. So a digital hygrometer is super inexpensive. It gives you real-time data. They're like $10 off of Amazon, and it's better than relying on how the air feels. Another thing that you can really do is watch for leaks, watch for condensation, watch for damp spots, and clean them up promptly. So even a small, slow leak can create localized high humidity conditions that trigger both microbial growth and increased VOC emissions. So ensure proper drainage around your foundation as well. This is going to look like you checking downspouts, redirecting water to be at least 5 to 6 feet away from the house. You can also check your attic or your crawl space ventilation to make sure that it is working properly and that it is not blocked. In many homes, these spaces act as buffers that affect the whole house moisture balance. Another area that we want to pay attention to are the exhaust fans. So these are often in areas where you're cooking or showering or doing laundry. I want you to run them while you're using that space, but then also for about 15 to 20 minutes afterward. You can also ventilate when weather permits, and this looks like opening a window on opposite side of the house is great. It creates cross ventilation when outdoor conditions are favorable. You can also use a dehumidifier in these damp areas like crawl spaces and basements. I live in Minnesota. We almost all have dehumidifiers in our basements, especially in the summer when it's very humid. So it's not a crime to use these tools. They're meant to help you improve the health of your home. A lot of modern dehumidifiers actually have built-in discharge lines and humidistats that allow them to maintain a target humidity level, and then you don't have to empty the baskets. Because the truth is, humidity is foundational, and when you get this right, every other aspect of your home's health can actually improve because you are controlling one of the primary drivers of both biological and chemical indoor air quality problems. Modern building methods often make homes very airtight, which honestly is excellent for energy efficiency, but it can backfire when ventilation is insufficient. So if the air inside stays stagnant, what happens is pollutants build up, and this can be anything from dust to VOCs from paints or cleaning products, your combustion byproducts from gas appliances, carbon dioxide from human respiration. There's a whole list. Now, the EPA and the Environmental Research Institute have both documented how inadequate ventilation in tight buildings actually leads to elevated indoor pollutant concentrations. So ventilation, whether through opening a window or maybe you can use mechanically vented fans in kitchens and bathrooms, or maybe you even have a whole house ventilation system, it actually dilutes indoor pollutants and helps maintain healthy indoor air. So the principle is very straightforward, but it's so critical. Fresh outdoor air, now this is assuming that you have good outdoor air quality, replaces toxic indoor air. And what this does is it reduces the concentration of whatever has accumulated inside. Energy Star and the Environmental Research Institute both emphasize that proper ventilation is one of the primary strategies for maintaining healthy indoor air in modern, efficient homes. So, without effective ventilation, we have all kinds of problems. Moisture from cooking, showering, and laundry combined with dust and chemical off-gassing. And then what happens is it all just lingers and it accumulates. So there was documented research from the EPA and the Environmental Policy Institute, which show that inadequate ventilation creates a compounding effect where there's multiple pollutant sources and they all interact and the concentration levels rise steadily over time. Homes built after maybe like the mid 1990s are increasingly airtight, which means that without consistent fresh air exchange, all of these toxins build up. They can affect your sleep quality, cognitive function, even at moderately elevated levels. We also see an increase in humidity, which also increases microbial growth. Odors might linger more inside, and air becomes very toxic and stagnant. It's like it's pollutant dense. So the tighter your home, the more intentional that you need to be about bringing in that fresh air. So what can you do about this? Well, first and foremost, use exhaust fans in your bathroom, kitchens, and laundry areas. And this is critical to make sure that they actually vent outside, not just into your attic, not just into a crawl space. I have inspected so many homes where bathroom fans simply just blow humid air into the attic. It creates a perfect condition for mold in that space, and it's very difficult to monitor and remediate. So check where those exhaust fans are venting, and if they terminate into an attic or a crawl space, you need to have them properly ducted to the exterior. If it's more than a DIY project for you, definitely call someone in and get that fixed right away. And then, when with weather permits and outdoor air quality is good, open windows and doors to let fresh air circulate. So even in the winter, brief periods of open windows can rapidly exchange indoor air without significantly affecting your heating costs. So in moderate seasons, take full advantage of natural ventilation by opening windows on opposite sides of the house to create that airflow that we talked about. Now, if you have a tight, very well insulated home, I want you to consider installing a whole house ventilation system. This would be maybe a heat recovery ventilator or an energy recovery ventilator, often called like an HRV or an ERV, especially in climates where winters are long and windows stay closed for extended periods of time. These are amazing. So what these systems provide is continuous, very controlled ventilation while recovering heat. This is in the case of like an ERV from your exhaust air. So it makes them very energy efficient solutions for maintaining indoor air quality without significant heating or cooling penalties, or you're going to be paying more. So an HRV or an ERV essentially allows your home to breathe in a very controlled, very efficient way. It's also very important to make sure these systems are cleaned. If you do not clean the filters in these systems, they can actually have the opposite effect and pull air in from underneath your house, bringing in things like radon gas and creating a more toxic space. But even cleaning any exhaust fan covers twice a year to ensure that they're operating at full capacity is important, because dust and debris, they can build up, significantly reducing that airflow and then just spreading it throughout your house. So keep bedroom doors cracked at night to reduce carbon dioxide buildup. This is particularly safe in smaller bedrooms or rooms that have very poor air circulation. Carbon dioxide itself isn't toxic at the levels typically found in homes, but elevated CO2 often indicates inadequate ventilation, and it can be associated with kind of stuffiness, poor sleep quality, and morning grogginess. Your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system constantly moves air through ductwork over time. And over time, while it does this, dust, debris, and even mold spores, they can accumulate in your filters, in your ducts, in your vents. And if you neglect these contaminants, they are basically just recirculating throughout your home. There was research done by the National Air Duct Cleaners Association and Bradenton Building Sciences that showed this is the case in most homes. So, regular filter changes, typically every 1 to 3 months, depending on your usage patterns, depending on your filter type, depending on whether you have pets. That is the ideal time frame to be changing these. Many of us leave them in for much longer. If you like to run your HVAC fan on instead of auto, you need to be replacing it probably closer to every 1 to 2 months. It's very important. The EPA and the Bradenton Building Sciences both emphasize that simple maintenance like this is one of the most effective interventions for improving indoor air quality. So, for stronger protection, especially for if you have a family member with allergies, asthma, or like sensitive immune systems, it's definitely worth it to consider upgrading your HVAC filter to a MERV 11 or even a MERV 13. You do have to know that the higher the MERV rating, the more frequently you're going to be changing this filter. You can add a HEPA level filtration or activated carbon filter. This will also help reduce VOCs and odors. There was actually some research done by the Environmental Research Institute that shows higher efficiency filtration can actually significantly reduce particulate matter in your indoor air. But again, it's very important. You need to make sure that your HVAC system can actually handle a higher efficiency filter, and you do need to be replacing it much more frequently compared to just a basic fiberglass filter. So definitely check with your HVAC person before you just install these in your system. And then establish a regular schedule and stick to it. So check your HVAC filter monthly, especially during high use seasons like summer and winter when your system is running very frequently. We want to replace or clean when needed, which might be sooner than the manufacturer's recommendation if you have pets or you just live in a dusty area or you're doing home renovation work. You can also inspect dust accumulation in your home. If you have persistent musty odors or visible mold growth around vents, then it's time to bring in a professional and have them look at your ductwork, get it cleaned out, and maybe installing higher grade filters or supplemental air purification will be the key. Now, again, you want to choose filters that work for your specific system because not all systems can handle high MERV filters. And so check with your system specifications, or honestly, bring in an HVAC professional to help you determine if this is going to be a good switch for you. You want to clean your air returns and your supply vents regularly with just a vacuum attachment to prevent dust buildup in these really critical air entry and exit points. And then have your ductwork professionally cleaned every few years. This is very important to reduce dust, debris, and even potentially biological growth that could accumulate in your ductwork. Your HVAC system plays a huge role in circulating and filtering the air you breathe daily. It's like the lungs of your house. And so the cleaner the air is, it means your lungs are healthier. It can also impact your immune system because it's not constantly responding to that particulate matter and those allergens, which then will improve your sleep as well. So if you have any fuel burning appliances, this would be gas stoves, furnaces, water heaters. If you have a gas fireplace, these will release carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide. There's other combustion byproducts that are also being released, but essentially they're all harmful or even deadly if they're not properly ventilated. So it's very important to pay attention to these combustion appliances. You can do a lot with prevention. And since some gases like carbon monoxide are odorless and colorless, you don't always know that you're being exposed without proper detectors. So this is a very key part of this puzzle is you need to have a carbon monoxide detector on every level of your home. It's particularly dangerous because it actually interferes with your blood's ability to carry oxygen. So even at low levels and levels below what causes acute symptoms, chronic low level exposure can affect cognitive function, your cardiovascular health, and even your sleep quality. Natural gas combustion, even when complete, produces water vapor. This also contributes to indoor humidity and carbon dioxide. So while incomplete combustion produces just carbon monoxide, both these are very harmful byproducts. And we want to make sure all combustion appliances are installed and vented correctly according to the manufacturer's specifications and local building codes. You want to test your carbon monoxide detector regularly, probably every 6 months is a really good baseline, and then replace the detector units according to the recommendation. So a lot of times this is usually 5 to 7 years because the sensors can degrade over time. Again, it's really important to place CO detectors on every level of your home, and we want them near sleeping areas. You can also ensure that exhaust flues, your chimneys, your vent pipes, that those are all clear and intact. So I live in Minnesota. In the winter, we have to check our dryer vents to make sure that it is not being blocked by snow, because if that gets blocked, we can have carbon monoxide building up inside our home. It's not just snow, it could be bird's nest, it could be leaves, it could be ice, even deterioration over time, particularly in older masonry chimneys, can be a problem. And then if you smell odor, or notice soot buildup around your appliances, or maybe you're experiencing like the pilot light just goes out all the time, this could be a sign that you have incomplete combustion. And this should be identified and serviced by an HVAC technician immediately. These are signs that there is a problem with the combustion and it needs that professional attention. You can also look at your gas lines, make sure that you're not smelling natural gas. Furnaces often have natural gas, water heaters that have natural gas, and they have lines that go to it with connections. Sometimes these do end up leaking over time, so it is something that you need to be paying attention to. Even a perfectly maintained home can become unsafe if combustion appliances aren't venting properly. So carbon monoxide exposure, it's always dangerous, even at those low levels. And sometimes those low levels don't trigger the detectors calibrated for that acute exposure. So a device is going to be calibrated to detect large amounts of carbon monoxide. So it might be worth it to have someone come in and just do an inspection to give you what the low levels of carbon monoxide are inside your home. Indoor air pollution often originates from inside the home itself. So this would be VOCs from paints, finishes, and cleaning supplies, off-gassing from new furniture and mattresses, even your textiles. So you bring all of these things into your home. And according to the Environmental Research Institute and the EPA, the most effective way to improve your indoor air quality is to reduce or even eliminate these pollution sources before they become problems. So it's a strategy called source control, and it really makes intuitive sense. It's far more effective to prevent a pollutant from entering your indoor air than to try to filter it out afterward. Source control should be your first line of defense. Then it's followed by ventilation to dilute whatever remains. And then finally, filtration to capture what ventilation doesn't remove. So it's a 3-part system if you want to think of it that way. So whenever possible, choose low VOC. Better is 0 VOC paints, ones that are truly healthy. Any sort of paints, finishes, sealants, furnishings, you really need to be aware of what VOCs you're bringing into your home, because even low VOC, it's just a marketing term. It's not very well regulated, and you can still be bringing lots of VOCs into your home. So with that, we want to look for some sort of third-party certification where they have stricter emission standards. And then any chemical that you have in your home, instead, store it in a well-ventilated area, maybe even outside your living space, in a container. So volatile chemicals continue to emit even when they're capped, even when they're being stored. So if you're storing it under your kitchen cabinet or a bathroom closet, it can become a localized source of elevated VOC concentrations. limit the indoor use of these harsh chemical cleaners and switch over to something that is EWG verified and completely safe so you're not contributing to the problem. And then one of my favorite things is keeping clutter to a minimum, because dust and off-gassing, they tend to collect and concentrate in cluttered spaces. So more surfaces means more area for dust to settle, and stacked items can actually reduce air circulation. So instead, we want to create micro environments where it's free from these pollutants and it's not accumulating. Another thing to consider is avoiding all aerosol chemicals. This creates a really fine mist that remains airborne longer and it's more easily inhaled. So it definitely is a more unhealthy option. It's these little steps that accumulate into significant improvements in your indoor air quality. And source control really is often a great way to save money because it actually costs less and it requires less energy than the filtration and ventilation needed to address the pollution after it's released. People spend honestly a vast majority of their time indoors, and so many studies have suggested that we're spending upwards of 90% of our time in our homes, in indoor buildings. And so indoor air can be significantly more important than the outdoor air, but it's also significantly more polluted than the outdoor air. So poor indoor environments that have mold, dust, VOCs, combustion pollutants, they've been linked to allergies, to asthma, respiratory problems, and even broader health impacts. And regular home maintenance isn't just about preserving your property value or preventing expensive repairs. It is partially about that, but it's about safeguarding your health and reducing long-term risks and creating a home that truly supports your well-being on a daily basis. If you think about it, your home is like not just the backdrop for your life. It's a living system that interacts with your body every time you breathe, every time you sleep, every time you're cooking or relaxing. So when you treat home maintenance as part of health maintenance, you move from that reactive mindset to one that's proactive, a well-being mindset of nurture this space so it nurtures me and my family. And as someone who cares deeply about healthy living, this approach really aligns with the kind of life that you want to build for yourself and your family. A home maintained with intention becomes a sanctuary, not only of comfort and beauty, but of safety, vitality, even peace. It becomes a place that actively supports your health rather than one that quietly undermines it through accumulation of moisture, of toxic air, or unrecognized chemical exposures. The science here is really clear about the relationships between indoor environmental conditions and also your health outcomes. So I think the good news here is that most of the interventions that matter, they're really straightforward. They're really manageable and they're cumulative in their benefits. It's these small, consistent actions that they add up to significant improvements in the environment where you spend most of your time, and that makes all the difference. Thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful that you're part of this community, and I hope you were able to find at least one thing from this week's video to apply in your own home. If you did find this video helpful, definitely give it a like, and please subscribe to my channel because I'm here every single week with new tips, new ideas, new information on creating an indoor space that truly supports your health and your wellness.